Nice to be here. Today we'll talk about ethical behavior and some research that I did to uncover what we would call unethical behavior. So we'll start off by seeing whether we have any guidelines in the literature as such. And when we look at the Institute of Management Accountants, they do have guidelines for ethical and unethical behavior. Included in their guidelines for ethical behavior, credibility. And so what we are required to do is to communicate information fairly and objectively, and we'll see whether Enron did that, and disclose all relevant information that could reasonably be expected to influence a user. So we will try and figure out whether Enron made some errors with regard to these guidelines over here. Well, this goes back to around about 1990, the year 2001. And at that stage I was a professional speaker. All I did was speak for a living. But I thought in case I ever want to come back to academia, I need to keep a working paper going, because that's how you get a job in academics. You come and give a presentation on your research, and teaching is not all that important. It's just how good the research paper is. So, we're going to go a little bit back. In this paper I talk about Benford's law. And Frank Benford was a physicist at the GE Research Laboratories in Schenectady, New York, and he noticed that the first few pages of his log tables were more worn than the last few pages. From this he deduced that he was using the first few pages more than the last few pages, but the first few pages gave us the logs of numbers with low first digits. So he figured perhaps in this world there are more numbers with low first digits than high first digits. That's why he's using the front of the book more than the back of the book. He then did 6 years worth of work, 20 lists of numbers, 20,229 observations, and lo and behold, these are different lists of numbers from varied sources. He found out that 30.6% of his numbers started with a 1, 18.5% of the numbers started with a 2, and if we add those two percentages together, we get 49.1% of the numbers starting with a 1 or a 2. That means that the other, I can't do that heavy maths, the other whatever percent started with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Well, he then did some calculus, usually a big favorite among accounting students. They want to go back for more calculus classes, and derived what we're going to love and adore and call Benford's law. And under Benford's law, I have certain expectations for the digits in listed numbers. I expect 30.1% of the numbers to start with the digit 1, 17.6% of the numbers to start with the digit 2, but I'm more interested in the second digits over here. So under Benford's law, I expect about 12% of all numbers to have a second digit 0, and about 8.5% of all numbers to have a second digit 9. Would Benford's law apply to every list of numbers? No. Number one, I need my numbers to describe size of some sort. I need large numbers to mean large things, and small numbers to mean small things. I also need my numbers not to be range bound, so they shouldn't have an upper limit or lower limit. And number three, the numbers should not be assigned numbers. And an assigned number is a number that we tend to use as a label. Well, I thought, let me have a look at these accounting numbers and see whether I can find any signs of corporate misbehavior. So I looked at the Wall Street Journal in April and May of the year 2001, and I looked at all the earnings reports. And I thought, let me see how these numbers follow Benford's law and whether I can detect any signs of strange behavior. Well, when I looked at the revenue numbers, so there were about 5,000 companies reporting in April and May of 2001, I found that the first digits of the numbers followed Benford's law very nicely. For example, the line is Benford's law, 30.1, 17.6, 12.5, and the bars give my actual proportions. And so the height of the bar is pretty close to wherever the line is, and that tells me that I have a reasonably good fit. But I was interested in looking at the second digits. And the clue here is I'm looking for the type of behavior which could be called last-minute manipulation. For example, the real revenue comes in at 497 million, and they say, doesn't 500 million just sound more? Or the real revenue comes in at 992 million, doesn't a billion just sound better? The exact opposite occurs when you go shopping. And that's where they would say, we'll price a shirt at $39.99 because it sounds so much less than $40. So there they're trying to make it look less than what it is. Now, I have a list of 5,000 profit numbers. What happens if I change some of those 492 millions or 59 millions and I bump them up a little bit? what happens to that second digit 9? It becomes the second digit 0. So we have a look here at the numbers, and so this is the Benford's law expectation from 12% down to 8.5%, and we can see that I'm short of second digit 8s and 9s, and I have more zeros than what I expect. Now, from an academic point of view, all I can say here is that the evidence is consistent with that type of behavior occurring. This is not proof. Again, the evidence is just consistent with this type of behavior occurring. I thought, let me look at earnings per share numbers as well. And the number that I care about is -1 cent. Corporations and chief financial officers don't like to report -1 cent because -1 has the stigma of being a loss, and number 2, if you report -1 in one quarter and then +8 in the next quarter, you can't show a percentage increase. You've got to put not meaningful or not applicable or something like that. But if you report 1 cent and then you go up to 8 cents, you can show 800% increase in net income. Wow, weren't we good? You just omit the fact that it's off a very low base. So I looked at the earnings per share numbers, and so these are the numbers from -75 cents to +75 cents, and all I did was count how many times each occurred. And so this was rather interesting. The favorite number was +1. The least favorite number compared to its peers was -1. So you can see we have a big gap here. They really don't like to report -1. So I sent this off to an accounting journal, and this paper was thoroughly rejected. They told me basically to go away and never come back again. I was heartbroken and devastated, but I thought I might survive. Well, a couple of things happened along the way. Number one, a little bit of fame and fortune in Business Week. At least I got a quarter page, and there it talks about a penny earned is a penny fudged, and it says Mark Negrini, an accounting professor, and so at least I get my quarter page in Business Week. And this is CFO magazine, pennies from heaven, so that's me. I don't know how to do it. And so CFO magazine gives you a little bit of publicity there, and I thought I would just drop the paper. However, at the end of that year, Enron happened. And so I was talking with colleagues in Alabama, and they told me, what did you expect? You write a paper showing that there's problems in accounting data, and you're very surprised that an accounting journal won't publish your findings. That's what you should have expected. You can't just be the Guns N' Roses of accounting academia. So I thought, you know, I haven't given up yet. Now that Enron has happened and Arthur Andersen are in court, why don't I compare 2002 with 2001, given all these events, and we see whether this type of behavior has increased or decreased. And the amazing news is, these are the 2002 numbers, the dark bar on the right, and what you can actually see is that while Enron was happening and Andersen were in court, the proportion of second digit zeros actually slightly increased. So it didn't deter the CFOs one bit. However, something interesting did happen with the earnings per share numbers. And again, what we can see now is that the number 2 cents has suddenly become the favorite accounting number. And I can't help but thinking that the CFOs said to themselves, you know, let's go up to 1 cent, don't report this -1, but don't go up to +1, because then they can find us. We'll be with the other people. Let's go to +2 cents, and then we'll be free and clear, and nobody will notice us. Well, everybody went to +2 cents. -1, very unfavorable. And also, when looking at these numbers, it's hard to see on the graph, but +10 is far more popular than +9, because 10 cents sounds so much better than 9 cents. And if we go to the other side of the graph, -9 cents is much more popular than -10 cents, because when it's a loss, then -9 cents is that much more popular. And again, I just remind you about the opening slide, which says that accountants are supposed to provide information, what did it say? Objectively, without any bias as such. And so this is at least some evidence that they don't do that.